let me ask you a question. When someone says to you, how's business? You busy? What do you say to them? I want to talk to you about productivity. And I think, are you busy? How busy are you? I'm really busy. I want to talk about that first of all. So, hi, welcome to today's episode of the Unstuck podcast with me, Libby Langley. Not a fan of busyness. Hello, hands up, not a fan of busyness. So when people say, how's business? You busy? I always used to say, yeah, you? And I do have to admit that these days, if anyone says that to me, I will make them feel really awkward by saying, I'm as busy as I want to be. And which I know they're not asking because, it's just like, how are you? And you say fine, But actually, it's something that we should address and we should think about. Not to put shoulds on your shoulders, though, of course, but something that we should address and we should think about because, I don't know, we've always seen like being busy as a measure of success. And I'm so busy, I was so productive because I was so busy. But busyness doesn't necessarily equal progress, right? And being busy, I don't know, who wants to be busy? You want to feel satisfied and fulfilled, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean being busy, does it? Because busy is rushing about, one thing, this thing, that thing, and it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. I can't be bothered with any of that shizzle anymore, I don't mind having lots of things going on, but busyness smacks of overwhelm to me. And I'm not a fan of that. So, I kind of think we've been sold a lie along the way, right? That the busier you are, the more successful you must be, which is why people say, how's business? You busy? And if you say no, they think, oh, well, she's a failure. That's not going well then. But it shouldn't be, right? Because I would say that most days I'm not busy. I have things to do. I have things that I want to do. So there's the need to do's, the want to do's, and the could do's, those things. But it's very kind of structured and measured these days, right? When I first started the business, I would say I was insanely busy and I worked, 16-hour days or whatever for a while. And that was mad. Absolutely crazy mad. Doing this, doing that, doing the other. Had a team to manage all the things, right? So I would say yes, then busy. Happy in the moment. No, I wouldn't say I was desperately unhappy for the entire time because we had a huge amount of fun as the team. I loved those guys. The team was fantastic. And we did loads of fun stuff. But overall, did the business make me happy? No. So the busyness didn't equal happiness. And I had so many things to do that it was ridiculous. I was spreading myself too thin, hence burnout, blah, 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 blah. So busyness, and busyness is a funny thing. And also we can do busy work. Had this conversation in my Unstuck community recently and about doing things to fill time, really, and catching yourself do that, because my goodness me, we can all do that, right? At the time of recording, we're about to move house. I don't know, could be this week, could be next week, who knows? And at the time of recording, and hopefully when you listen to this, I will be well installed in the new place. But so I know that I am doing things to fill my time so that I am busy, so that I am not thinking. I don't have as much time to think about stuff because it's really stressful, right? So I am, rather than posting signed forms to the solicitor, I'm driving there, which is like 50 minutes each way. And I know that I'm doing that. So I know that I'm filling my time because I don't want as much time. But that's kind of exceptional circumstances, right? And we'll all have things like that going on in our lives where we want to just not have any time with our thoughts. Whereas normally I love that, right? I love time to be able to just think about stuff and, I don't know, just decide what I want to do rather than having to do things. But the busy work thing that we were talking about was, I don't know, I think, I don't know, I think I was busy. 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 I don't know the kind of sitting at your desk, feeling you need to sit at your desk from 9 till 5 or whatever hours, right? And that's a real hangover from the corporate world, from the job that, we all used to have. That's what you do, right? You get up, you go to work, you do your job, you come home, you have your tea. Yeah, that's normal working structure. Or even if you work from home, as so many people have hybrid roles and all that now, you still have your working day. And when you work for yourself and you've created the business structure and model that you want, and it means that you have days where you don't have to do anything. Those are the days when you can think about your business, when you can plan your business, or you can do something completely unrelated to your business, right? And that kind of guilt that can go with that balancing act it can be really, really difficult. So I worked with someone a couple of years ago, and she was, 24/7 working, as she said. She wrote a testimonial on my website, actually, which is really lovely. And she was, in her words, she was working 24/7. She was always on her phone, managing her business, responding to clients, all this stuff. And her family was getting kind of fed up with this, right? And she knew that something had to change. So we worked together, and it did. And then because her goal was to work school hours, Monday to Wednesday, Monday, 3 days a week. And she achieved that. And what she said was, she almost didn't know what to do with the time that she'd created, because she'd made her business much more efficient, much more streamlined and all of this. But then comes along what do I do with this time? If I'm not working, what should I be doing? Should I be cleaning the house? Should I be doing, and it's like, how do we retrain ourselves to not feel like we have to be busy all the time? Because that isn't productive. And I say all the time to my clients, if you've done the things that you need to do, go and do something else. Because if you've done your work, that's fine. That's enough. You've fulfilled the commitments and obligations that you have to your clients and to yourself, and to keep the business running and all of this. There doesn't always have to be more, Yes, you've got to do marketing. Yes, you've got to, I don't know, if you have outstanding invoices, you've got to chase that. Yes, you've got to do kind of the behind the scenes stuff and all of that, but it doesn't have to fill 8 hours every day, 5 days a week. Doesn't have to. That's the point of having a business, right? You can have a successful and joyful business on, I don't know, 1 day a week. You could have one on 2 days a week, or 3 days a week, or 4 hours a day, or whatever, however you want to structure it, right? You get to choose all of that. So you don't have to be busy, right? At all. So I kind of wanted to talk to you about, productivity guilt and these endless to-do lists and, I don't know, the pressure to prove your worth by doing more. Yeah. Because when we address those, that's how you start to build a business that feels good to run. And that's the whole point in having a business. Yes. Can we agree on that, please? So productivity culture will keep you stuck in overwork, not in like progressive momentum, let's call it. We've all been conditioned to believe that productivity equals progress. But the reality is, a full calendar doesn't mean you're moving in the right direction. It just means you've got stuff in your calendar. Doesn't mean that it's all the right kind of stuff. Doesn't mean that it's all interesting. Doesn't mean that you want to do it all, right? At all. You can get, as a solo business owner, we have a million red flags, right? And you've got to be really good at spotting them, because what this kind of, productivity means, this busyness means that you can be drowning in tasks, you can be distracted by shoulds, and left wondering why it doesn't all feel that good, why you're knackered, why you're burnt out, why you're blah, all of this horrible stuff, right? But the culture, this kind of culture of doing more, and having a business and having a side hustle. The bloody hell do you want a side hustle for when you've got a business? It's like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. If you want to generate more income, look at your business and work out how you can be more profitable, which will give you more money without doing more work, or more efficient, or get more clients. You don't need a side hustle as well, because that's like 2 businesses. Why do you need that if you don't want it? If your time freedom is one of your goals, So keeping yourself busy is going to keep yourself stuck. That's what I want to say there. And there is a big difference between ticking off to-dos and meaningful action. So you've probably got a list as long as your arm of things to do, right? And I bet some of those things you're just like, I don't even know what that means anymore. It's like, I can't read the writing. That felt like a good idea at the time. I don't need to do it. So just cross it off, yeah? And the things that really matter, just do those. So I did an episode ages ago about daily non-negotiables, right? And again, this is something that I talk to my clients in my Unstuck community about a lot. So your daily non-negotiables are the things that make a difference to moving your business forward, right? They are important tasks. And write them down, commit to them, block out the time in your calendar to do them. And they happen no matter what, right? Treat them as important meetings with yourself, if that helps you rephrase it. But these things are going to make a difference to your business, okay? So they're really important that they happen. But you know why you're doing them, right? So for me, recording my podcast, it's a non-negotiable. It's not daily, but it's certainly weekly. Non-negotiable. It has to happen because it makes a difference to moving my business forward. I happen to love it too, which is, if you get that balance, amaze balls. And God, I haven't said that for a long time. We should bring back amaze balls. It's a good expression. But that, that makes a difference, right? So I prioritize it. It has to happen. And sending out emails to my email community, that has to happen because it makes a difference to moving my business forward. Yeah, I quite like guesting on other people's podcasts. I don't do those regularly, but those are things that happen. The stuff that doesn't matter is whether something looks pretty in Canva. Let's be honest, right? So time spent on that. Busy work, generally speaking, because often you get the best engagement with just a terrible selfie of yourself. We all know that now. We all know that that's how social media works, right? The kind of candid stuff is better. The reality TV-ness behind the scenes. So, the overthinking is putting yourself into the productivity trap. It's not actually the non-negotiables, the daily non-negotiables, the weekly non-negotiables that are going to move your business forward. So that's how to approach your to-do list. Yeah? Is this going to make a difference to getting to where I want to go? Yes or no? You can answer that, right? And if you don't know where you want to go, then we need to have a conversation because you need to go back to an episode a couple of weeks ago about setting goals that really matter to you, because that's all going to help, right? Because if you don't know where you're going, you can't know if what you're doing is going to get you there or not. So it all works, all fits together in an absolutely beautiful way. Absolutely. So there's some sneaky ways that productivity guilt shows up. So, I almost don't know what to do with my time now I've got so much of it. You can feel guilty for resting. You can shame yourself for having a slow day or a gentle day, right? You can adding unnecessary tasks in just to feel accomplished. But that's not about being lazy or not. That's kind of about unlearning old programming, yeah? So I've talked about clients, giving you examples of a couple of clients who've changed the way that they have acted and also the way I've approached business. And honestly, it's just really liberating. And it gives you time to just do other stuff and think about other things. And as long as you're bringing in the income that you want to, or you're on the path to doing that, right? You kind of know what you need to do for that. I don't see why you should feel guilty about that. Why does it matter to choose life instead of being busy? It's mad, right? It doesn't make any logical sense. So that's a big mindset shift for you. And that's going to make an enormous difference in the way that you run your business. I really, really hope. So when I first decided to stop tying my value to, or defining my value, measuring myself by what I produced, and started measuring it by how I felt, it was like a thunderbolt, right? So I was, my business was successful. It wasn't enormously profitable because our costs were absolutely phenomenal. But that's another business lesson, isn't it? You know, my turnover was enormous, but profit less so. So there you go. Don't always believe it when people go, oh, you know, I had a 100k launch. And it's like, yeah, but it cost you 99k to do your 100k launch. So anyway, I was in San Diego because I'm so glamorous. I used to go to, I haven't been for a couple of years, but I used to go to conferences there a lot, once, twice a year. Social media marketing world and traffic and conversion, great conferences, right? And I was sitting by the pool because I'm so bougie with some of the people that I know who are also out there, Brits mostly. And I said, I'm not happy, guys. And this was at the end of the conference. I think this was like a bit of time before we all got our flights home. And kind of explained what was going on. You know, I'd built my team, my business was successful. I knew what I needed to do to make it even more successful. I'd actually had an agency offer to buy us, or wanting to buy us, wanting to start conversations about that. And I said, yeah, but I'm not happy. And someone said to me, just looked me dead in, square in the face and said, so you know you can change it, right? And I'm like, my God, of course I can change it. That's what I would say to anyone else. But you know, we always need to hear things 400 times, even if it's the exact words that we say to anyone else. It just needs to land when it lands, right? And so I went back from that trip and I talked to my staff and I was honest with them and I made them all redundant, which was so hard. And I closed the agency and got rid of, you know, a lot of the clients because I didn't do the social media. I didn't want to do the social media management on my own. So I closed that agency and yeah, moved more into the stuff that I had been doing anyway, the teaching and coaching and stuff, and kind of got rid of all the extra stuff. So I was immediately probably 90% more profitable because a lot of the profit in the business had been the stuff that I was bringing in, because my stuff is basically me and my brain, which there's very few overhead. I mean, I'm quite expensive to keep running, but I'm quite high maintenance in certain ways. But it's, you know, there's no real overheads with that. Whereas the staff obviously had to pay them, had the office, had the computers, had the, oh goodness knows what, right? So I was immediately more profitable and immediately happier. It was just like a massive weight off my shoulders. But I had, you know, I was able to have more of an impact on the world. That was a kind of a real big thing for me. And that involves less time and less input, less busyness, right? I think the input, actually, the impact of the input is significantly higher, because it's not just offering a service, it's really changing people's lives and supporting people. And so that was an enormous difference. But I work fewer hours, you know, each year it gets less, right? But I work fewer hours to the power of, I don't know, I can't do the maths, but 10 probably. Do I work 10 to the, yeah, I mean, I probably do. And that's, you know, that comes from a place of privilege, right, as well, because I've worked for 14 years. I'm in business now, so I've done a lot of the hard graft. And when you first start a business, yeah, you've got to put the grind in. Because you've got to go out and meet the people and make the connections and do all the stuff, right, and learn all the stuff. So it's very different when you're first starting out. But as you get, you know, as you get kind of more established in business, people know you and you know what you're doing. But the biggest thing is that you're more confident in yourself to say, this is what I want to do and this is how I want to do it. And just saying, I don't want to work 9 to 5 every day. I mean, you can say it in that whingy tone, or you can say it in a more positive tone. That's entirely up to you. I don't want to work. I don't want to work 9 to 5. Then don't, right? It's a productivity lie that you have to fill all this time. If you've crafted your business to be exactly to suit your life and to suit you and your energy levels and your brain overwhelm and all these things, right? Your kids, parents, dogs, whatever, I don't know, horses you have to feed, I don't know, all of that, then that's great. And that's enough, right? That's the beauty of having your own business. And when you're overwhelmed, the last thing you need is another goal that feels like a noose. Yeah, you need to grow. You need to smash it. Oh God, I've just been reminded of something. I was talking to my friend Chris, hi Chris, if you're listening, he reminded me of something that happened a long time ago now, years ago. So what would that be, 12 years ago? And I was part of a mastermind group and Chris was in that too. And we talked about goals and actions and all that stuff, right? And I, at the time, had recently separated from my ex-husband, and I bought him out, and it was financially, it was a really challenging time because my business had changed, I've said, and I had to bring in an awful lot of money, right, to keep the house running. So it was expensive to buy him out, no two ways about it. And I remember being in this mastermind meeting and they were saying, so are you going to start a membership? You're going to do this, whatever. I can't remember the details now. And I burst into tears and I said, all I want to do now is keep a roof over my head. And that was my priority, right? Was how am I going to do this now on my own? How am I going to not only take over everything that he brought into the house, but also the extra of having bought him out? That's tough, right? As well as kind of grieving the end of the marriage and all these things that we go through, readjusting to all of that. And I burst into tears, and I had to, I don't know how many people there, 10, 12, can't remember. And I had to go out the room and I was just sobbing and kind of went and sat in the toilets and cried it out. And it was really difficult because I think the people who run the mastermind were trying to be helpful and constructive, right? But you've got to know where your headspace is and you've got to know what your priorities are. So the last thing I needed was another goal that felt like just more pressure. What I needed was just, right, I need to just sort myself out here. I just need to simplify absolutely everything because otherwise I'm going to drop dead from the stress of it all. And so knowing yourself enough to do that and being kind of brave enough to just say that, right? And maybe, showing, I don't know, I was kind of, kind of embarrassed about it. But actually, I think everybody was probably like, but, there, what's the expression? There, but for the grace of God goes I. And it was just like, yeah, everybody understands, right? Everybody's in business understands that sometimes you hit that absolute wall of complete desperation and misery. And that's okay too. So you don't need to be doing more all the time. Sometimes you need to just do the right thing for you at the right time. So that could look like choosing a single focus for the day, small, low hustle tasks to move you forward. Creating a done for now list rather than just like a rolling, never ending one that you number it. And it goes up to, you're on number 437 and it's like, how stressful is that? Even if there are things crossed off, just have a list. That's why I write stuff on Post-it notes, actually, because when it's done, I can screw it up and I can throw it away. And to me, that's a really symbolic gesture of moving forward. If I wrote stuff in a book, I would still be able to see all the other things. And also I would probably forget about them because if I turn the page, dead to me. So, know what works for you as well. But really importantly, track your energy, not just your time. Yeah. If you get tired in the afternoons, don't do like big stuff in the afternoons. It's kind of as easy as that. If your energy's in the morning, do all your important stuff in the morning. If your energy's in the evening, do all your important stuff in the evening. Know yourself and work around that. That's why you started your business, so that you got to choose. So choose. Yeah. You can choose all of these things. And these kind of tweaks are the things that will create space for momentum without burning you out, right? Being busy is not a badge of honor. It's not even necessarily a good thing at all, yeah? Don't ever think you need to be busier and don't ever think that you need to fill time. So I want to really just close out today's episode with inviting you to have a pause, to have to reassess and to find what actually moves you forward. Importantly, know where you want to go, where forward is, right? And pause, slow down, take a breath, analyze what you're doing. What am I doing? I mean, I don't mean like, what am I doing? You walk in the room and forget what you've done. I can't help. I forget why you're there. I can't help you with that because that's still going to happen, right? Why did they come upstairs? I don't know. Can't help you with that. But, analyze what you're actually doing Is the task that you're doing going to move you forward, or are you just procrastinating, right? And if you know that you're procrastinating, fine. Say, I'm going to do this for the next 15 minutes and I'm going to really enjoy it, but then I'm going to move on to something that actually makes a difference, yeah? Or just stop doing the thing that doesn't make any difference. Take it out of your weekly actions. Because if you're not generating any results from it, either by bringing new clients in, starting new conversations, converting people, those kind of sales-based activities, or it's not raising your visibility, raising your profile, or it's not generating income, or you don't like it, don't do it. Yeah, you don't have to do everything. Really important. You get to choose. You get to do what you want. And if you take the time to reassess, that's one of the most productive things that you can do, especially if you've been stuck in a cycle of overwork. It's not fun. So do one small thing today that moves you forward with clarity, not against it. And tell me what you've done. Tell me what's happened for you. It's going to make a big difference, this. And if you want a kind of pro forma, that's not a sexy word, is it? But if you want a pro forma to help you answer these questions, right? Some questions and some space to write the answers. Go to libbylangley.com/stuck and download my guide to getting unstuck, and it'll really help you kind of work all this stuff out in your head. So there we go. Productivity. The productivity lie is keeping you stuck, I think. So do not fall for it. Be strong. Resist productivity. Thanks for joining me again, and I will see you next week. Lots of love. Bye. 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 Bye.